Hi, I'm Chike Coleman. That's Chuck Kaplinsky, and we're back for another week of talking about movies. This is Real Reviews, the Cinematic Underground. And this week, since I didn't have the pleasure of seeing anything, which is regretful, I wanted to talk to Chuck this week about something he is doing on February 20th for the Art Theater, and that is a tribute of sorts to Philip Seymour Hoffman. First, Chuck, can you tell me how you got drafted into doing this and why it might have been or may have not been important to you?
They sent me an email.
They just sent you an email?
Yeah, they asked. That's all it was.
And you're like, well, I'm free that night, so I'm just...
Well, I wasn't free that night. I'm not free that night, actually, but I'm going to squeeze it in. And really, it's no big deal. They're showing two films that Philip Seymour Hoffman starred in. Of course, the occasion is regrettable, but on occasions like this, you celebrate the work, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to show Capote at 5, and then the New York film at 7:30 that no one can pronounce, of course. And they just want me to do like a 5 or 10 minute introduction to both the films. But what's interesting is you buy one ticket, you can see both. So not only are you going to see some great movies, but at a great price as well.
Yeah, so you're basically TCMing it for the night? Is that
yeah, I'm doing my Robert Osborne for the evening, and that's always fun. That's always fun. But yeah, of all the films he made, you probably couldn't do much worse than these two.
So what did you think of Cindy Ocean, New York?
Is that how you think it's pronounced?
I'm going to go with that one.
Cindy Ocean. That's a film that is hard to talk about without sitting down for a couple of hours to hash it over, as you well know. I mean, it is so incredibly ambitious, so incredibly complex. But what's interesting about, I've been doing a little research preparing for this, and Hoffman said about the film was that what fascinated about it was at the point where he got the script was he had two young sons at that point. The third son had not arrived yet. And he had been spending a lot of time with them. And what struck him about the script was that, this guy is so conscious of building a world around him and trying to monitor it. And it struck him as being a guy who's trying not to miss any opportunities in your life. And that struck Hoffman at that point, too, with spending time with his kids about wanting not to miss anything. But that the irony is that, when you miss an opportunity, he says, do you know when you're missing an opportunity?
Yeah.
He says, no, you don't. So just his approach to that I found fascinating. And again, without sitting down with a couple of drinks and a couple of hours, it's really hard to delve into this film. But it has to be experienced, I think you could say that.
Absolutely. I mean, yesterday was the first...
I mean, if you want to try a plot description, go for it.
I don't even want to...
Yeah, you got to give us something.
I'll give it a go. Okay. And for me, this was the first time I'd seen this film. My sister's been recommending that I see this film for years.
And this is a movie you have to watch a couple of times.
Yeah, because there's just so much there.
So much going on.
But to bluntly describe it, I'm going to cheat off of IMDb, and it's not really going to help that much.
No, that won't help you, yeah. But that's like pulling up the description for Eraserhead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which I believe is a dream of dark and disturbing things, which helps you not at all,
really
but it is accurate.
Okay, so the plot for Cindy Ocean, New York is a theater director struggles with his work and the women in his life as he creates a life-size replica of New York City. Now... That
in a nutshell.
Well, that's a very vague, blunt description.
Do better. I mean, you really can't, is what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm going to try it, though.
Okay, give it a shot.
A theater director struggling from a physical illness that is slowly overtaking his life decides to make one thing that is his legacy. He's going to build a life-size version of New York and cast people in it to reflect everyday life.
Right.
That's the way I'm going to go about it.
Yeah. And again, that's lacking in it.
That's lacking in all the little details that are vitally important.
Yeah, if this is written and directed by Charles Kaufman, who of course has done
an adaptation,
being John Malkovich. So I guess those are also signposts too. If you've seen those two movies, you know what you're getting into with this. I mean, it's an incredibly complex, moralistic tale, incredibly intelligent in the types of movies we don't see enough of.
And the dialogue is just so smart.
Yeah.
That's the thing that got me is when I'm sitting there watching the scene where he's basically talking to his doctor about what he's going through and the physical ailment, and he's saying, well, wait, do I have this? No. Do I have this? No. Do I have this? No. Is there a way to stop this? No. And just the bluntness and the frankness with which the conversations take place, but also there's this slight bit of sardonic wit that comes with every moment.
Which makes you then wonder, what does he have?
Yeah.
And is it all in his mind?
It's the story of a man taking a legacy of his last moments and kind of disregarding the rest of the world around him and just rebuilding it the way he would want it to be built. And while that's a brilliant thing, there's so much he's missing out on by doing that.
Which is the irony of the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I love, is that you can see the things that he's kind of missing or neglecting by investing himself so deeply in this project. Because every time he goes back into that real world, he's thinking, well, this doesn't quite work for me. Or this isn't the way I want things to go. And then he goes back and he adjusts things.
Yeah, it's a wish fulfillment act that ends up ironically not being successful. Because of, as you say, he's missing out on the real thing. And the real thing, of course, you can't control.
Right.
And of course, that's the beauty and curse of life. There is no control, despite us trying to do that at every turn.
Here's a guy who's valuing life, but also devaluing his own life at the same token. Because he's building the life he wants, but he's not giving himself a chance to live it.
Yeah, and also the other thing that's interesting about the film is eventually the reaction of the other people within his life. The character played by Emily Watson, if I remember correctly, is the one who is really trying to snap him out of this, or trying to point out that, this is not the way to do this. And I'm trying to remember who is the actress that plays her in the setup. I mean, and you have these mirror image things
you have
going
these
around.
doppelgangers of sorts that start entering into the picture, and you're like, are these reflections of the people? Are they
what does that
the actors'
mean?
Interpretations of these people?
Well, but not only that, but it's his. I mean, can you imagine how humbling or upsetting it would be to see, okay, there you are, and we're going to cast so-and-so in this role, and you realize so-and-so is more handsome, brighter, stronger, and you're thinking, oh, that's how you want me to be.
Yeah.
And of course, I never could.
Yeah.
Just very destructive from an emotional relationship point of view.
Entirely so. Entirely so. And that's one of the reasons I love. And I have to say, the last scene, the very, very last scene, because by this time, Hoffman's character is old and withered and just weak.
Yeah.
And the person who replaces him as director gives him his final scene instruction, and it's very simple. And I remember watching that and just, I have to freely admit this, and sobbing.
Oh yeah.
Because all the pain and work he put into his final work kind of, I don't want to say led up to nothing, because it led to him understanding his life more.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think the word you just used, that the key was that it's simple.
Yeah.
He's built this complex thing, and as you say, it's reduced to this simple thing.
This one moment.
And the irony is incredibly bitter, unfortunately.
And I really I dug that so much.
Yeah.
I've never been able to say that a somber moment has both hit me so hard and made me rejoice at the same time. Because all of the pain that character went through, and all the pain that the supporting characters went through trying to help him or guide his vision, is finally over.
Yeah.
So.
And in a sense, I couldn't help the relief, but think about the relief of the other people then involved as well.
Yeah.
Now that it's over, but then again, you say, of course, there's a new director.
Yeah.
And let's hope that he puts an end to it at that point.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't have to drag you back in. Like, oh, this nightmare's not done?
Now it's my vision.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So
interesting film, and one that's gone under the radar, unfortunately.
You know that it didn't even make its box office back? It was like
Oh, how could it? I mean, I
a
don't know
$5 million picture or no, a $20 million picture that made $5 million.
I was going to say that set alone. I mean, that's where they spent all their money.
Yeah.
I'm sure that everyone kind of took a cut on their salary, cast-wise, because this cast is really strong. You know, Kathleen Keener's there as well.
Yeah.
Michelle
a
Williams.
constant companion of Philip Seymour Hoffman
Right.
in films.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about it, you know, again, and she's in Capote as well.
Yeah, and there is a third film that I know that they're not showing at the art theater that I do want to spotlight that I think is also Philip Seymour Hoffman's best work.
Mission Impossible 3.
No, God, no. I thought about that. I knew you were going to say that at some point. I was like, please don't say Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible 3 is a good movie.
It's a really good movie.
It's a good movie.
But that's not the one I'm thinking of.
I didn't think it was. Yeah, go ahead.
A late quartet. Catherine Keener.
Yeah, you're right. They are in that together. I wasn't crazy
And that
about
was a
movie.
really strong film for me as well.
Also, back to Schenectady, New York. Samantha Morton's in that too.
Yeah,
Hope
Samantha
Davis,
Morton, yeah.
Jennifer Jason Leigh. Always love her. So yeah, good strong cast there. You know,
Yeah.
obviously they respond to smart scripts like this that they don't often see.
And so I really love that film. Did you get a chance to review that at all? I want to.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did. And that was what 4 or 5 years ago. Well, that was 2008. But yeah, I did because they did show that at the Art. Obviously, it was the previous owner, but he did have that there for a week or two, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So the next film we want to look at is Capote, which is a much easier film to summarize. I want you to go for it this time since I had a shot in the dark at the other one.
Well, yeah, it is much easier. Obviously, it deals with Truman Capote. It's not a complete life biography. It deals with his discovery.
A singular event.
Yeah, where he investigates the brutal murder of the Kansas farm family, the Clutters, which leads to him writing the novel In Cold Blood. But of course, it really deals with his relationship with the killer in the film, Perry Smith, played by Clifton Collins Jr., and his attempt to try to understand what would drive him to commit this heinous, heinous crime, and the relationship that forms there, as well as how the success of the novel affects him, not only personally, but in his career as well. Hoffman said about this film that what interested him about it was the fact that the irony of this moment in Capote's life, that this book would drive him to such incredible success, but then lead to his ultimate downfall, which I thought was an interesting take on that, because of course Capote never, I mean, he writes wonderful things afterwards, but never to the acclaimed success of In Cold Blood. And also, if you read any of his biographies, this relationship that he had with the killer, Perry, did haunt him for quite some time. So yeah, that, like you say, it's a much more linear film. And his performance is just so interesting here. I mean, Hoffman's a big guy, was a big man, and Capote, of course, was not. Yet, what he does physically in the movie, obviously he lost weight, but there's more to it than that.
He basically, in my opinion, when I saw this film, he almost, and this is weird to say, he shrinks himself.
Somehow or another, he shrinks himself. You're right. Obviously, it's a posture thing, but somehow or another, it's more than that. And that's an interesting trick to pull off, but because despite Capote's small physical size, he certainly was an outsized personality.
Yeah, I mean, he was a towering figure personality-wise, but he was,
Yeah, a small guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an interesting trick, and I'm going to look up while you talk who else was nominated that year, but definitely it's, I wouldn't say most of the times, but there are more than a few occasions where the Academy Awards get it wrong. This is one time where they got it right.
Yeah, and I would argue Cindy Ocean, New York would have been the other one that I would have loved to see Philip Seymour Hoffman win for. I don't even know if that film was nominated.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, but I really loved this film. I loved watching the emotional, not torture that Capote went through, but kind of like he was pushing to basically piece this crime together.
Right.
And, he got unprecedented access to the crime photos and finally got Smith to break down and tell him what really happened on the night where the murder was committed, and worked with Smith extensively to try and get him paroled or free, and that failed on all accounts. and was actually there at his execution.
Yeah.
To me, the measure of a man is not what he does, because all of us are going to have things in our life that we do that define us in different ways. But how he responds to people, his reactions to people and the things that matter to them, is what really drew me into Philip Seymour Hoffman's engrossing portrayal as Capote. I really feel as though, even though Toby Jones also came out with a characterized version
With
of
Sandra
Capote,
Bullock.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's version was hands down much better because of the emotional way he carried himself, the way he didn't let himself be belittled by people despite his voice and size. I love that scene where he snaps back at the person who is basically insulting the way he sounds.
Yes.
That to me is a crowning achievement in the walking a mile in someone else's shoes.
Well, and you mentioned how his trying to piece this all together, and he runs into something that really has no logical answer or explanation to it, and I think that's what frustrates him the most towards the end there. Best Actor nominees that year were Joaquin Phoenix for Walk the Line.
I know Terrence Howard was one.
Terrence Howard for Hustle and Flow. Davis Strathairn for Good Night and Good Luck. And the only guy who I would think maybe should have gotten it instead, or maybe a tie,
Who do you think?
Heath Ledger, Brokeback Mountain.
Ooh,
So
that's a tough call.
tough
man.
call. But a great film, and one that, that's the one, you go back and you look at an actor's filmography after they're gone, and obviously that'll always be in the top 5, and not just because he won the award. I mean, there's a lot more going on there.
If I had to name a top 3 for Philip Seymour Hoffman, and there's a large body of work to do so with.
Along Came Polly.
No.
Hurricane, or Twister.
No.
Okay, just trying.
I would go with The Master is number 3, Capote is number 2, and The Late Quartet, or Cindy Ocean, New York is number 1. It'd be a tie there. I really think that Philip Seymour Hoffman was a towering figure in this industry. And by all accounts, his work spoke volumes. And how he handled himself outside life, I don't know, beyond the circumstances of his death.
Well, once you see what has happened, it all begins to make sense.
But he seemed to love the work, though.
Well, but I think that it seems to me, and of course I'm like Lucy Van Pelt here. It's this is psychological advice for a nickel. It seems to me that perhaps his private life was not a place where he was happy, and he was only happy when he could become someone else. And perhaps that's why his performances are so strong. He just so fully invested himself in these characters to escape what he was going through, perhaps, that that translates to powerful, powerful work.
I would not disagree with you there, because I know that the same has always been true for jazz musicians. That
Sure.
is what I liken Philip Seymour Hoffman to. A jazz musician, a man who knew the notes that had to be played for each and every film he was in, and said, nope, I'm going to go this way instead.
Well, how do you play the notes?
Yeah, or how do you play the notes?
To do your jazz musician analogy.
Yeah.
The notes are the same, but how do you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where do you go with it? So that's one thing that I really valued about Philip Seymour Hoffman as an actor. And of all the actors that exist currently in today's generation, I can only say there may be 1 or 2 other male actors who can really produce such range. One would be Joaquin Phoenix.
I was just going to say that, and seeing those two in The Master. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know what a third would be. Do you have an idea for who a third person would be who has that capability?
I don't know. I'll have to think about that a little bit. But that's, of course, what makes this such a tragedy, is because performers of that depth are few and far between.
I would say Christian Bale.
Christian Bale seems to be, I think,
But only in drama, though. He can't do comedy.
Well, which successful comedy did Philip Seymour Hoffman have? I mean, let's stop and think. Along Came Polly? No, I don't think
No.
so. I'll look them up real quick, but I
maybe-
can't think of anything off the
I would
top of my
almost say
head.
Boogie Nights a little bit.
Oh.
Not Hard Eight though.
No, I wouldn't say Boogie Nights. So, I mean, that's a hard film to watch, especially his scenes, because he's just so painfully awkward and out of place within that world that he's in. But Charlie Wilson's War, there's a couple of nice scenes there, that are comedic. As far as that goes, and it's interesting. He of course had to make certain compromises with his work. I mean, I'm sure that the Hunger Games film is not something that appealed to him on a deep level.
Yeah.
But you do those to pay the bills, and then you go off and you do these other more personal films where you're not going to make much money, and those are the ones you believe in. And that's what you want to see. You gotta find that happy medium.
I would say the one other actor that in my brain right now that's just coming out at me that I would say has that same capability to do the range in the jazz musician type style that Philip Seymour Hoffman so greatly embodied. This is going to shock you. You're probably going to laugh at me.
Say the name.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Too soon to say.
Too soon to say? Okay, fair
I'm going to go too soon to say on that one.
All right, fair enough. But he has a body of work that's kind of going that trajectory, I would say at least.
We'll see what happens with the Sandman. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's the one I'm worried about. The next and last film we're going to review this week is the 1987 version of RoboCop. Now, Paul Verhoeven, I really don't know what to say about him as a director other than he's cheesy ultraviolence.
Cheesy ultraviolence. Okay.
He's like.
Well, let's stop here for a second. You say cheesy ultraviolence, but you're looking at that through a lens of 25 years ago.
Not entirely, because you look at Starship Troopers, that's another indication.
That was old too. I mean, if you're comparing it to special effects as done today, I mean,
A bit, yes.
I don't think that's a fair comparison.
Okay, well, okay.
But I think you're right. He is over the top.
He is over the top. He's this is so hard to talk about with him. RoboCop, in essence, to me, was the beginning of that cheesy ultraviolence, unless you can think of an earlier film that I haven't seen.
For him or in general?
For him.
Okay.
Was the beginning of his ultraviolence period, which apexed with Starship Troopers. RoboCop was the story of a police officer who was searching for a gang. They come and they do a two-person operation in which Alex Murphy, the main character, is caught by this gang, and in a fashion that I can only articulate as gruesome and saddening, shot to death by pretty much every member of this gang with shotguns, pistols, just destroyed, essentially, before finally being put out of his misery and shot in the head. Which, can I just point out something? It's impossible that after the first 3 shots that Alex Murphy should have not died.
Are you going to start really nitpicking this thing? I mean, really? Really?
I don't want to, but
It's-
I'm just pointing that one fact out, that he should have been dead after the first 3.
So why didn't you stop watching it then?
Well, mainly because I hadn't seen the director's cut version of RoboCop. I wanted to see if there was anything that was really systematically different. You actually get a nice cameo by Denise Richards as one of the scientists in the film. And basically what ends up happening is they rebuild him as OCP's primary police officer, which everybody treats RoboCop like he is a special ed case, in the sense that he's not human, but he's not machine. I liked RoboCop when I first saw it, and I embraced the cheesiness wholeheartedly. Especially that one guy who was the leader of the group, who took a nice acid bath at the end of the movie. You know who I'm talking about? He
Kurtwood
got-
Smith, I believe?
Yeah, and he got run over by the car and just, oh.
Yeah, that is my favorite moment too, I have to say.
I have to
He's
say,
just
it's
splattered all over the
It's
windshield.
cheesiness to the effect, and I love the random stupid quote. I'd buy that for $1. That whole thing is genius.
And then the great line at the end. You're fired.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the things I like about that film is the dark, dark humor. You can't. I mean, you call it cheesy violence. It's not anything I take seriously. You know, it's so over the top that I'm not offended by it. I thought it was just a comic book.
Yeah.
You know, and I know you're going to see the new one. I've already seen it. Just be prepared.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I want to see is a more grounded take on that whole premise, and I think that this new version will provide me that somewhat.
Somewhat, yeah.
But I will say I love Peter Weller in the role as RoboCop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and an actress in the film, Nancy Allen, who
Yeah.
never got her due, I didn't think. I thought she's a very, very talented woman. She made some interesting films there in the late 70s, early 80s. But for some odd reason, she just didn't
Never
take off.
caught on, and I thought she was the real brilliant centerpiece of RoboCop.
She was good and also played his partner. And also, she made a great movie, one of John Travolta's better films, Blowout. Brian De Palma film. She was quite
I
good in
actually have
that.
that on the Criterion Collection.
Yeah,
at
check
home.
that out. That's a good one too. And for some odd reason, I don't know what happened.
I
to
love
him.
that one because of John Lithgow.
Yeah, he's out of his mind.
He's out of his mind in that film. and
Last
it's
time I
just
saw
great.
Nancy Ellen was quite some time ago in Out of Sight, the Clooney Soderbergh film. She's got a cameo in that at the end. But good actress. Good
Yeah.
actress.
Yeah, and what are the films that you're looking forward to this week, do you think?
Well, let's see what's coming out. Well, Kevin Costner has a new movie coming out called 3 Days to Kill,
Yeah.
which directed by McGee, who I hate,
Yeah,
and
me
written
too.
by Luc Besson, who I hate. So this has, you know, hopefully it's so bad it's good. I'm not sure if we're going to get that
Yeah.
point yet. There's a movie coming out at the Art, though, that I'm looking forward to seeing called The Invisible Woman, second film directed by Ralph Fiennes. It deals with Charles Dickens and the mistress that he had, young actress that he met in a theater company in which he was involved with, who was quite a bit younger than her, who was quite in love with her, but of course could not acknowledge her socially. And she had to, you know, basically live in the shadows while this relationship went on. I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking forward to see it, but that's coming up at the Art.
I would say the films that I'm looking forward to this week are the Lego Movie, as I haven't seen it, RoboCop, and Winter's Tale also seems like a really good film with Colin Farrell playing the lead role with a odd. Have you seen Winter's Tale?
Have not. I'm going this weekend.
I've heard there's a cameo by a certain actor.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's a supporting role or whether it really is just a cameo, but I like the idea of it because this actor has played a leading man far too often, and I think he's better relegated to a supporting role.
So he can't carry a film?
He hasn't been able to for a very long time.
Long time?
I would say so. When do you think was the
Well, I'm
last?
trying to think. Don't jump on me. Don't jump on me, man.
Okay, I'll
Jump
be
on me.
nice.
Try to be nice. I know it's a stretch for you. Yeah, it has been a while though, and I don't know if it's
Without giving, is there a way not to give it away though?
by not saying the. Yeah, probably not. You know, I did like that second sequel to that one franchise that he did.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that
that
was
was a
a
good film.
very, very strong film for him, and was essentially his coming back party until that one film by that one director we all loved in the
One
late
film by that one
'90s.
director. Yeah, we're not even going to talk about that.
Yeah, he just
The one
that-
film by the guy with the thing. Well, you
Yeah.
know what though? He did take quite a break there. He took a 4-year break.
yeah, and it was good to have him regroup, and I think that this supporting role will be good for him.
Right.
I know the ladies will love it. They've always loved this guy. So I'm really looking forward to those 3 films, and those are the 3 films I'm going to be seeing for next week's show.
Okay.
Is there any other interesting news you want to part on to our viewers?
No.
I did have one last thing, though, and that's that Luc Besson, the person you hate as a writer, has announced that they are making another Transporter trilogy.
Yeah, I noticed they were going to reboot that. yeah.
An Origins thing, which I'm quite okay with. If I can
Okay.
see where Frank Martin came from, I'm happy with it.
I'm
The
not
TV
sure I can
series
wait.
is just cheese on top of cheese, but I am actually looking forward to that. So next week we'll review Winter's Tale, RoboCop, and the Lego Movie. And until then, we will see you next week.